It's time for us to bring our weekly news tracker workflow to life. And in BuildShip, you do this by shipping your workflows. In the previous video, we talked about triggers and we connected 2 triggers to our workflow. These triggers control how our workflow will start. But even though we've connected these triggers, our workflow is not going to do anything until we ship and deploy it. Since the start of this beginner's course, we've been neglecting the ship button. But no more. I'll click this button to ship our workflow. Our workflow has been shipped successfully, and if you've been following along with us from the beginning, then congratulations. You have now built your first BuildShip workflow from scratch and shipped it. Once you ship your workflow, you'll notice the button change from saying ship to shipped. When you click the ship button, you'll get an overview of your connected triggers. And the cool part here is that because we connected our workflow to a REST API call trigger, we get an endpoint URL that we can use to call our BuildShip workflow. Now let's look at an example how we can use this endpoint URL to trigger our workflow, and then we'll see how you can easily inspect the incoming request payload in BuildShip. For this test, you can use any REST API client of your choice, for example, Postman, or in this case, I'll be using Hopscotch. So you'll want to make sure you copy your workflow endpoint URL. Once you've done that, then we can start issuing a request to this workflow. Remember when we configured the REST API call trigger, we set the HTTP method to post. So in Hopscotch, we'll change from get to post, and then we'll paste our workflow endpoint URL. We'll need to enter a parameter here in the request. This will be for the topics input. But for now, we'll just send an empty request like this so that we can inspect the request payload in our BuildShip trigger. So we'll send a request. And right now we're getting back an error message, but that's okay. We'll just go back to our BuildShip workflow. We'll go back to our REST API call trigger. In the Connect tab for the REST API call trigger, there's this very useful feature that BuildShip gives you where you're able to retrieve the request schema from the latest request made to your workflow. To load the request schema, you just click this Get Data button. And notice how the body is currently empty. This is where we need to specify the topics we want to pass to the Perplexity AI search node. So let's go back to Hopscotch. We'll switch to the body tab, and then the content type, I'll set it to JSON. And now I'll just enter a JSON object here. And I'll enter the field topics. And I'll just set it to AGI. Now we can send a request. And if we go back to our BuildShip workflow and we reload the request schema, this time our body contains one field, which is the topics field, and it contains the value AGI. If you are sending multiple fields in the request and you needed to map those out as inputs in your workflow, then one easy way of doing that would be to just select the fields that you wanted to add, and then you can add the inputs to your schema. We already have the topics input mapped correctly, so we don't need to change that. Let's just investigate why our workflow is failing. So we'll bring up the logs. Let's expand the latest log. And I have a hunch it's failing on our send email node. So let's just expand it. And this is where we are getting the error. Perhaps I just need to authenticate again with my Gmail account. So I will log out. And this is where we're bringing in all the fundamental concepts that we've learned in the previous videos, such as debugging, authenticating nodes, and logging. So what we'll do here is just authenticate again. So add account, I'll select this Gmail account. And now that I've signed in with this account, just to make sure it's working, I'll test the node. For the email message, I'll just enter hello world. And then we can switch this from JavaScript to just text. And let's test the node. And this time it works. And now that we've fixed that, let's head back to Hopscotch and then we can resend the request. We get back a successful response from our BuildShip workflow. And if I bring up my inbox, you'll see that I get our Perplexity AI news report here. And that's how you can ship your BuildShip workflow and call it from the outside world. We now have a weekly news tracker that's live in production. Every Sunday, we can expect a Perplexity AI report on the topics we care about in our inbox. And if we ever need to call our workflow before then, we can just trigger our workflow using the workflow endpoint URL.